Hey guys. So little disclaimer moving into this video. I am extremely tired. I am working on a net 0 hours of sleep and just got off a 16-hour shift not that long ago. So if I stumble over my words or fuck things up and get annoyed with natural light, my sincerest apologies. Hey, and it's coming back. All right. So, I want to start off this video first by talking a little bit about poll aggregating websites because I think there is an important disclaimer to be made for some speculations that I'll be making later on. So when you hear me talk about polls, try to keep this disclaimer in mind because I don't think that they're the end-all be-all. So I've been paying extra close attention to the Democratic primary and subsequently the polls over the last few months. And I'm starting to kind of question who to trust a little bit. Also, in addition, I started this video first by writing an essay. It was going to be a fairly short little Facebook status. But a short Facebook status turned into with a 2,000-word essay, and here we are. So back into it. When it came to polls, over the last couple of months, I've spent a great deal of time poring over the data that you can find over at 538.com. If you're unaware, 538.com collects data from several different polling sources, and in addition to that, aggregating that they do, they kind of put them into comprehensive averages and also kind of plug in the polls with other information, or kind of like the day-to-day happenings in an attempt to kind of project and predict possible outcomes for the political race that's going on right now. Sorry. And because I've been paying so much attention to 538 over the last couple days, I think I kind of got stuck in some level of denial about the information that they were putting forward. Boy, when you look at their current information versus the information that you can find over at realclearpolitics.com, I'm going to eventually add the links in the description down below. For now, I'm probably just going to put the Google Doc that I have for this essay, if anybody wants to read it. If you're hearing impaired or anything like that, or you just hate my voice, you can just go check out the essay. Good job. So anyway, one example that stands out to me the most about the difference between 538 and Real Clear Politics is what they currently have going on with Bernie Sanders and Biden. So if you look at 538, it shows Bernie Sanders taking a massive dive in his projections to win any metric of the Democratic primary, a majority of delegates, and a plurality included, whereas Biden is skyrocketing. Yet, over on realclearpolitics.com, Sanders is still in the lead, and it's pretty evenly matched on their up and down. I'm also going to leave links to a little bit of information about their methodology and the purpose of them. It's clear to me that 538 gets a lot of their information from kind of speculating on the effects of certain endorsements and other happenings within the field that's kind of outside of polls to kind of try to gauge what's going to happen next. So the only reason why I'm bringing this up is if you are supporting any particular candidate, it is important for you to get your information from multiple sources and to avoid too much of these by the numbers projections and speculations, because I think sites that spend too much time trying to predict things rather than simply reporting on things as they are can be kind of disheartening and misinforming for a lot of people. And I think that it should be said that you should always be careful and kind of cognizant where you're getting your information from. So anyway, with that being said, I'm going to make some speculations that many people might find disheartening. But I think it's time for some of us to just kind of take a step back and make some calculated decisions about who we support in this primary cycle and think about why we are supporting who we are supporting. So, kind of to get to the crux of this, as you guys can kind of predict, I'm trying to address mostly Warren supporters in this video. From the onset, I want you to know that I love you. I have a lot of respect for Warren supporters or anybody who is electrified by a candidate. Getting engaged is very important. It's the first step to being an informed voter. So, good. You took the first step. So, with that, let's talk about the events of the last couple days. So, yesterday, Amy Klobuchar and Pete Buttigieg dropped out. Saturday, Tom Steyer dropped out. And also yesterday, what happened was Biden picked up an endorsement from Amy Klobuchar, Beto O'Rourke, and Pete Buttigieg. All of this kind of makes me believe that it's kind of crunch time for progressive politics. And if you are a Warren supporter, I want you to just think about something. I want you to ask yourself, why are you voting for Warren? Is it her politics? Is it that you just like her? Do you kind of sit in you're tired of old white men, and it's time for somebody else to take the lead, somebody younger, maybe somebody who's female, somebody who's a part of a minority group, or do you just find yourself in this camp of we need a radical restructuring of our political agendas, and Warren's a good candidate for that. So while you think about that, I want you to kind of hold on to that, sit on that as we explore the present Democratic primary. So it is becoming very clear to me that Biden is now seriously competitive against Sanders. Like, he may beat Sanders. He may go into the convention with more delegates than Sanders. Biden is a centrist Democrat and a longtime member of the standard status quo faction of the left. And a lot can be said about putting forward somebody like that, putting forward a centrist Democrat as the nominee. So I kind of want to just explore that to contextualize some things that I'm going to say a little bit later on. So one thing that I think nominating Joe Biden would do is show that the party didn't really learn its lesson from 2016 about putting forward these centrist corporate Democrats. When you look at information that came out around the time, Brookings.edu actually has a really good article that I'm going to link in the description. And it says that only about 18% of young voters expressed any excitement for Hillary Clinton in 2016. And it is my speculation that a lot of new, younger voters will probably feel the same way about Biden and will ultimately stay home in the event of a Biden nomination. I think younger voters will almost certainly feel like the system is just kind of rigged and that their voice doesn't really matter. At least that was a very loud and clear consensus in 2016. So try to put yourselves in their shoes. Imagine fighting so hard for a politician that is a complete deviation from the norm. Somebody who speaks to the needs and wants of the everyday worker, not just the worker, but the everyday citizen, just to have the establishment come in and stop those efforts in full force. If you're a young, new voter who's probably pretty idealistic, that doesn't really bode well for you. Like, it just doesn't sit well with you. So looking back at 2016, there was, I believe it was a really good Forbes article that said that 55% of Bernie Sanders supporters expressed deep mistrust in Clinton just a month before the general election. 1 month before the majority of Bernie Sanders supporters didn't trust Clinton at all. I firmly don't think that that's going to be any different with Biden. So I can give you a few more reasons. I can give you dozens of reasons why I feel like Joe Biden would be a terrible nominee. Like, here's an example. Look at what happened during the impeachment. A lot of what was said about Hunter and Joe is going to be amazing cannon fodder for Trump to just lob at Biden. Regardless of the validity of those claims, you can look at Burisma as it's going to be to Biden what Hillary's emails were to her. Biden's stance on the Iraq war is just going to be his Benghazi. Bussing's going to be his bussing. I feel like these three things are going to be some of the things that Biden gets attacked on, and he's going to have a really hard time coming up with anything that's going to really charge anybody up and be like, yeah, that's my dude. And also take into account Obamacare, which is pretty unpopular with Republicans still to this day, is also going to be weaponized against the former VP and will almost certainly reignite this repeal and replace discussion that we had back in 2016. Which, in some ways, might help Biden out, but I feel like it's more likely that it's going to not help him out. So, with all of this factored in, I believe that putting Biden forward will lead to an electrification of and an impressive turnout for Republicans come November. To me, all of this is a sign that now more than ever, it may be harder to cleave off any significant amount of Republican voters from Trump, which incidentally is what Biden and his supporters are banking on. I hope I'm wrong, but that's just the way that I see it. So anyway, the reason why I started this appeal to Warren supporters video by bringing up the possible weaknesses and implications of a Biden nomination is that by current polling data, it's abundantly clear that Warren is basically out of this race. And I know we haven't gotten anything from Super Tuesday yet, but what is she doing? I mean, she might be able to pick up her home state of Massachusetts, but even there, she slipped in the polls a number of times to Bernie Sanders, and last polling data put her around 2 to 8% behind him, which really makes it surprising to me that Warren has decided to stay in this race. And I'm going to get a little bit conspiratorial. Some might think that I'm getting conspiratorial, but at this point, I feel like the writing's on the wall, and what I have to say isn't really that far-fetched. What I have to say is what a lot of people are saying online, and it makes sense to me. So let's kind of just lay out some more facts about Elizabeth Warren. First and foremost, I've seen a lot of Liz supporters in online spaces say that they don't think Bernie can beat Trump. They've got this argument that we need to put forward someone that can beat Trump. Well, okay, yeah, but that myth, I'm just going to dispel it really quick. If you look at every single poll, Biden beats Trump, Sanders beats Trump, Warren beats Trump, even Bloomberg beats Trump. I'm pretty sure Klobuchar was polling above Trump. So these arguments that only my candidate can beat Trump is kind of silly. when you're just looking at that. So aside from all of the polling to the contrary, one more thing that we kind of have to think about is when we look at the majority of Warren supporters, at least that I've seen in online spaces, and according to polling data that I found at emersonpolling.com, most Warren supporters and other centrists are firmly in the camp of vote blue no matter who. And if you don't find yourself in that camp, I get it. But if you are in that camp, then keep in mind for you that it probably won't matter who gets the nomination. In all likelihood, you're going to vote for a Democrat over Trump no matter who it is. Additionally, I would like you to consider that most of Warren and Biden supporters tend to be older, educated, fairly politically engaged voters, and the majority of which are dependably Democratic voters. So Warren's base being dependable voters matters because you know who isn't your typical dependable voter? A not insignificant portion of Sanders supporters. Okay, so why does that matter? I hear you yelling through space and time and somehow my computer, which, first off, please stop. Don't know how you're doing it. Makes me uncomfortable. But I want to remind you that one of the main reasons that Hillary lost, aside from the broken system of the Electoral College and the weaponization of sexism, her loss was due in no small part to a failure to excite younger voters and millennial voters. Given that there's a massive amount of Generation Z and millennial voters that are now coming into the fold, the winning strategy may be to excite those younger voters, and a failure to do so could just show us a repeat of 2016. I think it would be disastrous at this point to not do that. So I want you to ask yourselves, do you really see a path toward the nomination for Warren that doesn't involve an extreme amount of luck and a really sketchy contested convention? Because I know you and other Warren supporters who may not be watching this video, may be watching this video, are smart. The majority of people who are going to see this video are going to be my friends. So to the two of you who are watching this, I know you're a very smart, caring, beautiful person, but we both know that there is no way Warren is going to win without an act of God and some really sketchy backdoor dealings at a contested convention. I mean, yeah. So anyway, this brings me back to that one main question that I keep asking myself is why is Warren in this race? Buttigieg was doing significantly better than her, taking the most delegates in New Hampshire, not New Hampshire, but Iowa, getting second place, a pretty solid second place in New Hampshire, having not a bad showing in Nevada comparatively to all of the other candidates other than Sanders, and he did fairly decent, same scenario in South Carolina. So why is it that Buttigieg dropped out, but Warren stays in? Unlike Warren, Klobuchar was at least still poised to win in her home state by a landslide, by the way, and she's gone. Until recently, Warren was running out of money, which I'll touch on why she's not anymore in just a second. And even billionaire Tom Steyer dropped out, and money was not an issue for that dude. So does Warren honestly think that she can win this thing at this point? All the cards are stacked against her. She doesn't have the ability to excite the voters that she needs to, and she doesn't have a clear path to the nomination. So again, Warren, Why are you staying in this thing? What are you doing? I don't understand it. Or at least I thought I didn't understand it, but it kind of makes sense. So I want to try to connect some dots, and this is where we're kind of getting into the more conspiratorial side of things. But when you really break it down, and you really break it down alongside her actions and her policy changes and everything over the last few months, it really begins to make sense. So here's a couple of reasons why I no longer like Senator Elizabeth Warren. Warren came into this campaign off the back of several viral clips that made her seem like a champion for getting money out of politics. She constantly called out the corruption in Washington on the Senate floor, yet early on in her campaign, she said she would accept money from lobbyists in the general election. On the subject of money, Warren, in the Nevada debate, chastised her opponents, said that her and Klobuchar were the only ones without super PACs, and that made them better somehow. And then 3 days later, you know what she did? She accepted money from super PACs. And you know how I said I was going to get back to the fact that she is no longer broke? She was so broke that she was skipping out, traveling to states, and holding rallies because she couldn't afford it. She took out a $3 million loan because she was down to like $400K. So what happened there, Warren? She started off this campaign as the candidate who had the answers to everything. She had a plan for everything, and that's why she was better than Bernie. Except on the first debate stage, when asked about her Medicare for All plan, you know what she said? I like Bernie's plan. I'm doing what Bernie's doing. And now she's proposing something completely different. She's proposing a 2-part plan that starts with a public option in her first term, and then her second term, she's going to attempt to shift it away from that to Medicare for All. So not even getting into how that might cause issues with a transference of infrastructure. If you know anything about kind of the cycle of politics, you'll know that typically the second term is when the president has the least amount of backing in Congress and Senate. So why she's leaving the hardest thing to get done for the latest part in her theoretical presidential terms is madness. And I'm not going to really dive too much into this because it flabbergasts me. But then there's this completely unrealistic claim of sexism she leveled toward Bernie after he tried to get her to run in 2016, after he'd been a 40-plus year veteran advocate for civil rights and feminist rights, after he was the largest supporter of the Squad, after she went on and on and on about how Bernie's such a great ally for women. Now all of a sudden, when it's convenient for you, you vaguely hint at the fact that he might be sexist, and there's nobody to corroborate it, and when pushed on the issue, you backpedaled. I'm not saying that calling people out for being sexist is wrong, but I'm just saying all of the facts line up on Bernie's side, whereas none of them line up on Warren's side. Yet here we are, and we're supposed to believe this. So, in my opinion, when all of this is laid out, one thing here, one of these things on its own, easily swept under the rug. But when you line them all up, a picture starts to form that Elizabeth Warren is just staying in this race at this point to split up the progressive vote. With 3 campaign suspensions since Saturday, 2 of which ended with an endorsement for Biden, Warren knows that at this point, if she drops out, it's only going to boost Sanders. Warren is hoping that she picks up enough votes from the exits of Buttigieg and Klobuchar that she's going to be pushed over that threshold in states like California, where she's going to cut a little bit in to Sanders' delegate count at the end of the day today, that it's only going to hurt him. Because we know going into a contested convention, you know where the superdelegates are going. You know exactly where the superdelegates are going. And if you don't, then you're not paying attention. So by staying in this race, not only is Warren hurting her longtime progressive friend, but she's hurting progressive politics as a whole. She's following a clear trend of backstabbing her longtime friend and fellow progressive Bernie Sanders and helping the corporate Democrats. So if you are holding out for Warren, I hope that this has sufficiently made the case for you to come over to the Sanders camp. Like I said, you guys are smart. You guys are beautiful. You're loving. You're amazing. But after the last month of poor performances in primary contests, changes in key policy issues, and the events of this last weekend, I believe there is a very solid case to be made that Elizabeth Warren has completely lost the plot at this point and is no longer one of the viable progressives in this race. If you care about progressive policies, now is the time to move away from Warren and come over to Sanders. We will welcome you with open arms. We have the same hopes and dreams for America. We both want people to be happy, to afford to live in this country. Let's rally behind somebody who can actually do that instead of doing this divisive nonsense where we hold out hope for somebody who can't even win their own home state. So I'm going to leave the Google document of my essay down below. There's a little bit of me going off in this video, kind of off script, but I didn't want it to feel too stilted. Sorry that the video has terrible lighting. Sorry that the sound might be kind of shit. Sorry that my voice is annoying and grating right now. Like I said, 16-hour shift, no sleep. And I really hope that you'll check out my sources. I hope you'll read this if you are hearing impaired. And I just want to thank you for watching. And I hope that you have a beautiful day.